whatever it needs to going through the pool. I know Balancer already has that functionality where you can do a single asset instead of both assets or 3 assets that are required depending on the pool. So I guess the difference there would be like if you wanted to put USDC into the TELBAL pool as an example, you would be able to do that. Whereas right now on Balancer, you have to have either one or the other asset to do it as a single asset, which again, I'm perfectly fine with, because if people are more comfortable with using USDC as the asset of choice and what they have in their wallet, especially if they're just onboarding into crypto, then at least from that perspective, they can pick any pool that USDC will convert in the background, get those LPT tokens through Balancer or whatever other protocol we're going to be using in the future. And then basically the big thing for me is just making sure that we have those LPTs then further staked on the Telcoin network as well. Because doing the daily updates, like I do see that, 99.26 was yesterday or today, is staked on TELx. But there is that percentage that's not. And those are the people that I want to make sure that we're covering as well too, because if you miss that final step, you're missing out on all the incentives, which is the whole, the main purpose of providing liquidity to TELx is to get that TEL issuance.
Yeah, that's correct. Any token that you've got in your wallet that's supported by the Telcoin app as well. I think that's the other.
Well, I don't think we need to worry about that right now, Ty, just because the functionality is not going to be connected to the app, and that'll be a later development, and that'll be a decision made by Telcoin Holdings, the company, not necessarily us as a council, because we don't have oversight on what happens with the app. Don't get me wrong, I would love to have functionality on the app through to withdraw and invest in TELx, but that's from my conversations with Parker and some of the other team is like we don't have jurisdiction on those type of decisions.
Yeah. All right. I mean, again, I'm open to that. I was just suggesting that it maintain consistency with the TEL app, because that makes then the springboarding between lifting the stuff from TELx into the app. But that can be done at a later stage if not. I mean, again, it can be. The other thing which was interesting, and I should just mention this in the passing, that in the discussions that I had, I think with Emir, I asked the question because I also provide liquidity on Cardano network through a platform called Wi-Fi. And Wi-Fi, you don't need to restake your LPT tokens. You keep them in the wallet, and the system knows that you've got LPT in your wallet, and therefore you're participating in the farming. And I said to Emir, is there a technical reason why you have to restake the tokens that you've effectively generated from Balancer? Is there a reason why you have to then physically stake them? Can't the system be smart enough to know that what's in your wallet is the rewards that you're getting generated? And he said it would be possible to do that. So that removes that step. So the user holds the LPT tokens in the wallet. So I haven't gone down that path. I'll let the technical people decide whether or not that's a change they want to make as well. But that would simplify, I would think, some of the coding if TELx somehow knew what volume tokens you had in the in your wallet. But that's I digress on that. That's just I'm mentioning that in the passing.
Okay, yeah, no, that's something to bring up, I think, down the road. Yeah, I don't know if there's any technicality reason why, unless they needed to, facilitate everything through the TELx network website for those incentives. Mike, I don't know if you have any comment on that or if you have any insight on that, but if not, then we can move on. But
I don't recall. I do remember a discussion from a long time ago about the purpose of the second step of staking on TELx. I can check on that with Parker, and maybe the rules of the compliance and things around that have changed over time too. So I'm not sure this, because we've been on the same platform and same set of rules for a while now, and this is an ever evolving space. So it'd be worth
Okay.
reconsidering that, I think.
Okay. No, that sounds good. Appreciate that. Okay. With that being said, Will, Tim, Matt, or Mike, to your point as well, does anybody have any questions for Ty, or do we think we're all kind of aligned to move to the next step for a snapshot vote?
Actually, I'd like to, if I may, I'd like to talk about the initial swap in Ty's system. I mean, I'm a little bit worried about the feasibility of, running a smart contract through aggregators to make the initial swap and everything, when we could all just leverage balances, single asset provision, and just, let's say, how much TEL do you want to invest, click how many tokens, and then just go, build from what's existing, and not develop some kind of very complicated smart contract to do an extra step. I'm not really sure about what this extra step would give us as a community. I think if people had the possibility of providing liquidity with their TEL token, at least it would be enough for a start. And I think it would be easier to implement it and do it faster.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Will. I think I could look at pros on two sides of that coin. The side that you're mentioning, obviously, we're pushing more of the TEL token, and if we only want to use the TEL token as a single asset, then again, it gets more people into that ecosystem. The other side of it is then, we're getting people outside of the TEL coin ecosystem to try to see and invest in TELx. Again, for them to get involved in, the ecosystem, all they would have to do is swap, a stable coin or whatever coin for TEL coin to then do that further step. I'm indifferent if Ty, I'd love to hear your comments on it too. But, if we want to say the single asset has to be TEL, I'm okay with that too. Like for me, the biggest thing is just making it easier and being able to invest everything through the TELx website without having to go to another protocol and then take it back and go back to TELx and stake it. Like I just want to make things a little bit more simpler. And if everything can be facilitated through TELx, that's, I think, my main goal with this proposal. But how we facilitate that, and if it's only going to be TELcoin, or if we're going to allow other assets to be used as those single assets, I'm indifferent to that.
Yeah, don't get me wrong.
It's
a great idea to be able to do it with the USDC, but I'm just worried about the feasibility. If we go with the only TEL, then maybe we can do it in 1 month and let's go.
Yeah. Again, I don't know the work that's needed.
Yeah, my comment on that would be that when you're providing single asset liquidity with TEL, you have to, of course, make people aware that what's happening on their end. They're buying an LPT token. It's a sale of their TEL. They're buying an LPT token, and during that process, they're selling 20% or 50% of their TEL for the other token. There's some tax rules in there, et cetera. But also, you're going to have some price impact from other smaller tokens, like say Sand or Link or something like that. Somebody wants to provide liquidity in TELx with one of these other tokens, where there's not as much liquidity in those pools to begin with. So a swap is going to result in a price impact penalty. So I think those are all things that can be done, of course, but giving people the knowledge that they need to understand the impact of their financial decisions is important in this. So I guess when I think about providing liquidity to TELx, if you're going to do multi tokens, TEL would of course be one of them. USDC, Ether, Bitcoin, Polygon would be the ones that would come to mind. Would be like a limited first set of, if you want to provide single asset liquidity with one of those tokens that's in your wallet, there's enough liquidity there that the price impact is not going to be great. So there's something to consider.
Yeah, fair comment. The whole, I suppose the idea started from my point of view was that I didn't want to use TEL because I think that's going to be an appreciating asset, and I didn't want to suffer any IL on my TEL. And part of my strategy in the early days of investing into these liquidity pools was to, when there was a price jump in TEL, I would then provide some liquidity to the pools. And so that if the price dropped, I would actually be generating more TEL, which is what my strategy was. So my strategy was TEL accumulation. And the other thing was, the idea was that if I've got a token that's shown some profit in the past, such as Sol, and I'm thinking I actually want to get out of Sol now, let's use the profit that I've made and just push it into the TEL platform and use that. Yeah. So that was what drove my thinking on both single asset and the ability to use any asset, was that I didn't want to use TEL and I wanted to capitalize on some of the profit that I'd made from other tokens. So that was the thinking there.
Yeah, and that makes sense for those high liquidity tokens. The issue is that what's happened, the first step of that smart contract is going to be to take that token and sell it for some percentage of the other one. Or if you're just providing Solana and you want to provide liquidity to a Telcoin USDC pool, it's going to sell the entirety of your Solana in two steps. It's going to sell a percentage of it to TEL and a percentage of it to USDC, and then it's going to pool those. I mean, I'm sure the smart contract works not that difficult on that, but that's what's actually happening in the background. And so there's going to be multiple fees and steps along the way to the user, which you are making easy in a one-step process, but having people understand that as another process. Because if you're going through the process of selling that token on your own and then finding a liquidity pool and providing the liquidity, you understand the impact of what you're doing. Whereas there's an education piece here that needs to be considered, which is how will people understand if they're clicking that button what's actually happening and what their tax implications are for that, and the impact to their decision will be some sort of fee or loss from a price impact perspective. I think as we get, I love the idea, but also promoting it properly and educating people properly on what's happening and what is actually going on with their wallet, which will be auditable.
Yeah, no, I take that. And I don't know from an audit point of view how you would actually capture that. You'd have to show the transaction in the, say, MetaMask activity.
Yeah, right. No, well, the transaction, it would hopefully be a multi-leg single transaction that would have a fee associated with it in gas. But then you would be sale of one token to ultimately buy. On the other end of that multi-leg transaction would be an LPT. But the multiple steps involved in that, there is additional cost that'll be very transparent on the blockchain as in the form of gas fees. Like your gas fee will be higher, and the amount of LPT token is never one for one. If you're putting $100 in, you're not getting $100 out, and so that's the point. But I think most people understand that, but there's a lot of people that would be trying to single click this thing and just being like, "Wait a minute, I put $100 in and now it's worth 95. What happened?" Having people understand the process and some sort of disclosures would be something of value.
Yeah, I think we could work on that after like we kind of get this going. Like I think we'll have to go into like a test phase first to make sure everything works properly and all that kind of stuff. And in that process, we could probably, put like a click warning like at the end where it says like, are you sure you want to do this? Doing this may have this implication, whatever. And you can kind of have like a warning kind of before they make the final decision so that it's essentially on them at that point. And then from a compliance and financial perspective, I think that, waives any concerns from our perspective on that. But I was going to ask you, Mike, is it possible to do all of those steps in one transaction, even if like it's built in the right way where they can take one single asset, say Sol, trade it, swap it for 80% TEL, 20% USDC, stake it on or at least provide liquidity on Balancer and then stake it on TELx. Can that all actually be done in one transaction, or is that going to have to be like a multiple transaction on the back end?
I think that the complexity of smart contracts allows for that thing, but I don't know for sure. There are some protocols out there that I think enable you to do things like this, but that's a good question for the technical team. And Amir or somebody like that could probably answer that question, or Leo, or for example, could probably give us, okay, well, there's nothing. That's a great idea, but like in reality, you're still going to have to do 2 or 3 different transactions, and then it's like sort of the point of single clicking is then lost.
Well, so, I think the single click is still there. It's just like when the transaction is, finalized, they would have to say, okay, here is your swap transaction. Here is your liquidity transaction. Here's your staking transaction. Like we would just have to display it and say, okay, here were the 3 transactions that were made. Here are your, transaction hashes.
Yeah, right. And I know it's all possible via smart contracts. I mean, how many of the protocols you've used, but there's, for example, there's like a, cow swap where you can do time weighted asset, like sales where you can set things to sell at certain times and or to buy at certain times, so all of this can be written so you on one end just say, I approve all this other stuff that's about to happen. So yes, I believe that's all possible.
Okay.
The discussions I had with the techies, they didn't say, oh, we can't do that, that's impossible. I think the question is whether it would boil down to a single transaction or whether it would be multiple transactions on the blockchain. I think that's my feeling is it would be multiple transactions. So you've got some chain, so there would be nominal additional costs. But again, not any more than the user doing that manually themselves anyway. It's taken away the jumping between platforms. It's taken away the
room for error and all that kind of stuff too, which is what we're trying to get away from, right?
Yeah. And then the development process and the testing process will be able, you might be able to, tweak the contract. So once you run a test transaction, you could then run it through your tax calculator and see what it looks like, because you want to make it sort of so that our users, especially, in my jurisdiction in the United States, you have to like track your taxes carefully. And now providing liquidity is the IRS has gone out and said like, hey, okay, like if you provide liquidity, that's actually a sale and a purchase. That's not, you're not just moving your assets into another bucket. So making sure that all flows properly and is properly represented so that our users are protected.
Yeah, okay. And I'd always envisaged this extension to TELx being complemented by educational piece as well. Just explaining in detail what's going on, and probably some other educational stuff about explaining or providing links to, if you want more information on impermanent loss, click here. So there would be a kind of user guide page available within TELx that gave them some idea of what providing liquidity actually meant,
Right. Yeah. And so it's something they scroll through and they hit confirm at the bottom. That's up to the user to decide if they read it and understand it. But at least we have to provide it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's yeah.
Okay. So from a high level, again, it sounds like Mike, Ty, we're all aligned. Will, Tim, Matt, you guys have any comments on Ty's proposal?
Hi. Yeah, no comments. Just it now sounds easy for the user to access. It's going to be explained properly, and keep it nice and simple on the front end when you go onto the UI. Sounds like that's all going to happen. So yeah, I think that's a good shout.
Okay. Thanks, Tim.
Yep. No objections from me.
Okay.
Nothing
Matt.
nothing to add. I'm good.
Okay, there you go. All right, Ty. I think we can move on to the next step. So great job with that. Mike, do you know, do we have to reach out to Grant to kind of get this pushed to Snapshot? Or what are the next steps to kind of get this going? I can reach out to Grant if we need to, because I know he just put the one up for Steve with the emails and stuff. But just to understand what the next steps are and if there's anything that we need to do, but
I believe he could help us, or at least get us in the right direction, given how this was sort of the first one from this council. So that would be, I think he would be happy to either do that, help us do it, or point us in the right direction.
Okay, I can take the lead on that and reach out to him and just say we've got essential consensus on this and we want to push it to Snapshot. Okay.
All right, thanks, Andrew. I'm happy to do that, by the way. I don't mind. I talked to Grant.
You know what?
Anyway,
yeah, sure. Yeah, Ty, if this is your baby, if you want to take the lead, go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's a good learning process for me as well.
Sure, sounds
right.
good.
And somehow, I guess there's probably somehow we have to indicate, a 5 of 6 council member unanimous decision to push it forward. I don't know how that works, but
that'll be the Snapshot 5 out of 6 that we need to do.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
It sounds like we're essentially in consensus now, so I'm not expecting any other pushback. If you have pushback, I would say bring it up now. But essentially, hitting that quorum is through that Snapshot vote, so that we can, essentially put our voting on the chain through our NFTs.
Yeah, and Boo Classic asked a question in the comments about getting liquidity back out afterwards. How would that work? Or do they need full TELx knowledge to unstake? And I don't know how. Go ahead.
I think the way I saw it was it's rather than give them a single asset back, then they just get the coins from the pool as is now. So you don't unstake and then jump into balancer. It would still all be a single process. You just decide how much of your token to unstake, and then you would get the coins off the pool back.
Yeah, that makes the most sense.
And I think that keeps it simpler.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too. Basically, the same going in as it would be going out.
Yeah, except you don't just say, I want my returns generated into Sol or into USDC or whatever. You would get the native coins off the pool back into your wallet.
Okay, we could do that, or maybe even an option of just take out TEL or something like that too.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that, on Balancer and et cetera. So that might be something that could be written into the contract if you want to give optionality to withdraw into one of the assets in the pool, not to a separate asset. But I think if you wanted to, right. So if you had TEL USDC pool, you could withdraw just to USDC or just to TEL, but you wouldn't be able to withdraw to Ethereum, for example. So
no, I'm aligned with that too. Yeah, either you take out a portion or you take out one of the assets that are already in the pool.
Yeah.
Ty, you're okay with that, Ty?
Yeah.
Okay. Next on the list, I know we don't got too much time, but how's everybody for time? I know we were a little bit delayed. We're getting 10 minutes to 3:00 here, but I'll try to go through my proposal quickly. But yeah, is everybody okay for time?
Yeah,
Okay for a
probably
bit.
till
Yep.
4 o'clock, hard stop.
Okay. Okay, so with my proposal, I know I've kind of talked about it a little bit, but essentially what I want to do is kind of just bring forward some data analytics in a framework where we can kind of post more information on the TELx website. So I know we had done previously kind of something similar with Dune Analytics, so that's why I put it in as the proposal, but it could be any other platform that is, similar. Essentially what we need is, a data hub that's going to collect all of the data coming off the blockchain with all the different metrics that we want to, review. And then essentially from there, we use that, centralized data hub to then portray whatever kind of information we want into the TELx website. So it could be liquidity trends, specific metrics, volume, fees, liquidity pool tokens, stuff like that. So right now, the issues that I was seeing is just kind of, again, there are some information that's up there, but again, it's not the most, I guess, accurate information in terms of making a decision. Really on TELx, it kind of just shows us, what's the volume, what's the fees, this kind of stuff, but it doesn't really, from an investing perspective, it doesn't really tell you, the issuance, what could potentially get out of it. To Ty's point, if you put in 1,000, what does that equate to? And, in terms of issuance based on the current, liquidity in the pool. And then just even expected returns as well in terms of, APRs and whatnot. I know a lot of other protocols do that. I tried reaching out to like Grant and the Compliance Council just to understand why Telcoin's never done that leading up to this point. I never really got too much of a response, but I know Balancer does it. You can see it on their protocol where they actually give you a percentage based on real-time information. So it's that kind of information that I think I want to put forward. So not nothing too crazy from that perspective. It's really just the two components, just to sum it up, is really just having a data aggregation section where it's a centralized hub, and then doing some dashboards or visualizations and graphs and whatnot on TELx, pulling from that centralized hub. When I was looking at resources and finances, I would assume and hope that the TAL would be able to manage this. I know when we did it before with Dune, we had one guy doing it, and I don't think it took him too long. So I'm hoping, building that kind of framework is not going to take too long or be too costly. But maybe on the kind of visualization, the UI, the UX side of things on TELx might take a little bit more. So I kind of did it into 3 phases. So the framework design, which may take up to a month, the development and testing 2 to 3 months, and then the launching and reporting. So even within this protocol or proposal, I wanted to see maybe if we can put forward, maybe like a monthly report or a quarterly report, kind of like a financial report on like how everything is doing, what are the averages, that kind of stuff too. A lot of similar stuff that I'm kind of doing with the TELx community, just to try to bring forward more information, more data points for people to review, understand, and make impactful decisions on whether or not they want to provide liquidity to TELx. So expected benefits would be obviously to try to, with what Ty's trying to do too, is obviously increase TVL, right? So that's the whole goal, main goal of what we're trying to do here is to broaden, TELx as a whole and increase as much liquidity as we can, increase transparency with real-time insights, better informed decisions with all of the information that's having there. And then scalability is just kind of having everything kind of set up so that as new pools are added to, we can kind of hopefully plug and play with that type of information where, a new pool is added. Okay, well, we added into Dune or whatever. It starts, tracking all of the data. And then, hopefully it's just a plug-in as well, too, to the TELx network through some APIs or whatever, where we can start, visualizing and displaying that kind of information. So challenges, basically making sure that we have experienced developers, which obviously through the TAL we'll have that availability, and then any accuracy, so we'll have to do some kind of testing and validation on a regular basis as well, just to make sure that all the information that is being pulled is accurate and up to date. and then adoption as well. So again, that's more on the interface UX UI. And again, yeah, metrics for success. Again, obviously tracking TVL across all the pools, user participation. So maybe we even have, a pool or a graph or a data point on, how many, individual users or individual wallets are participating to TELx2, so we can measure that as well and kind of take it from there. So we can get into the weeds a little bit more on what specific data points and things we want to, showcase and whatnot. But overall, the proposal is more just around, getting a centralized data hub that we can use to, push that information out to try to increase exposure and liquidity into the ecosystem of TELx. So I'll open it up to questions and comments.
I really like this. I love this idea. I think that's been something that's been needed for a long time to help people understand what's happening with their liquidity. I think there might be like a compliance issue or something with that. As far as, I think if I recall correctly, there's when you're advertising rates of return, there's some specifics around that need to be vetted by legal, if you will. And so like no guaranteed rates of return and variable, stating that it's a variable rate and not saying it's an annual percentage yield, but saying it's, whatever it is. And so those are the sort of things that I don't fully I don't know, but I know are like from a regulatory perspective are important to have ducks in a row on.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's what I was trying to reach out to the Compliance Council first to understand, what implications it might have. But I wasn't hearing back and I didn't really want to wait any longer. As much as I love doing the updates on a daily basis, I can easily do without doing that every morning to help everybody out. So I would say, let's put it forward and see what the Compliance Council has to say. And then we can take it from there and adjust accordingly. But
I support it.
Okay.
I second that support. I agree. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, very well written, and let's do it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Tim, any comments?
Yeah, all good with me. But does this mean that we're not going to see your updates on Twitter anymore or X anymore?
It might be easier for me to just take a snapshot of what's on TELx and I can still post it. That'll take 30 seconds as opposed to 10, 15 minutes of me doing it every morning.
We got to make sure we have all the pretty colors in there, though. I mean, that's got to be part of it.
Well, maybe we can get Josh involved to help with the UX UI on that side of things. But
yeah.
There must be some way we can get that automatically set up so it just does it on its own. But hey, no, brilliant. Well done, you, and thanks for doing all that work.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, no, there's probably a bot that we can actually, build or put together too that can, send something out every day or whatnot. But yeah, anyways, at the end of the day, I think, what I've been doing with TELx, I think we just need to do it, formally and, the right way. And again, I'm no coding person, developer or anything. So I'm manually taking all the information, putting it into an Excel spreadsheet and updating it on a daily basis. Whereas I prefer it to be coming directly from the blockchain where, it's kind of doing a snapshot or pulling the data on an hourly basis or something like that. And then we can accumulate the information and put it out that way. And then at least, every day at, 9 a.m. Eastern, the update goes out and we know that the information is 100% accurate. Because obviously sometimes I do it at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., sometimes 11, depends on what's going on. But okay. Any other comments on that one before we'll go to Tim's? I don't know, are you guys okay? If we try to push this one to snapshot too?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with that idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, maybe Ty, we'll get together and maybe we'll reach out to Grant together or some way to try to get both of these things going and take it from there. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just a bit disappointed that you haven't had to do 5 revisions of your document, Andrew, to get to that stage.
I did spend a lot of time on it by myself, and I can sometimes be my own worst critic. So it did take me a while to put it together. I probably proofread it a good 5, 6, 7 times before I came up to my final version. So
yeah, so it's the internal revisions. That's the
yeah. Internal versus external tie. That's all.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Okay, good. Awesome. Tim, I'll give you the floor and let us know what's going on with yours.
Did you just cut out there, Andrew?
Sorry, say that again.
Okay, you can hear me, yeah?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, go.
Okay, good. Yeah, my proposal is to reintroduce or to add on 2 new liquidity pools with additional incentives. Not to get us back to where we were before, because that was a lot of pools and a lot of incentives. But from my memory, the idea was that we voted to reduce down to 6 pools, which we've done. And that was kind of on the basis that will stay as it is until such times the TAO is up and running and the council decide whether to change that or not. So it's in this forum where that can be changed or proposal can be made to change that, which is what I'm proposing. And taking a straw poll of members in a Telegram group and on X, that there is interest in having a couple of extra polls. It would attract more liquidity, in my opinion. It's the incentives that are going to be the attraction to get liquidity in. If there were any dilution of existing rewards, and that will be shared out over an additional 2, it would reduce the attraction. So I think if we're going to have a couple of extra pools, then we would need extra rewards allocated to those. And again, we've got an idea between those that have been polled as to what those 2 pools might look like. And the favourites are coming up as TELxIP and TELxSOL. How we would put that together would be the next step. But this is just a proposal of would the council be in agreement to consider adding 2 new pools with additional rewards incentives.
All right, thanks, Tim. The only question I have is just on whether or not we have additional funds to be able to provide new pools with new incentives. That Parker did mention that he was going to try to come on, and I was hoping he was going to be able, because this was going to be one of the questions that I had for him. But I thought we had a set amount of issuance that we can use, and if I'm not mistaken, that's already included in all of the incentives that we're doing now. If that's not the case, then it should be fine. But if that's not the case, and we want to add additional pools, then this brings up kind of the last kind of, I think, chat we had, not at the last meeting because I wasn't there, but the one before. But if we don't have additional, incentives, then the bigger question then becomes how do we distribute, the existing incentives we have? And is it manually done? Is it, done through voting or whatnot? But that's a bigger conversation that we can have later on. But I think,
yeah, absolutely. What I'm exactly what I'm thinking. In that, if we're going to do this, we will need to ask. We need to ask the Treasury Council or the Treasury itself to allocate additional funds, additional incentives. And that's kind of the whole point. Is this is really the question that we're going to ask as to how we will then decide if we're going to add additional pools. because at the existing level of rewards, that would mean dilution. It would make the pools less attractive. And we'll take a view on that at the time. So it depends which route we go. Will depend on the answer to the question that we need to pose to the Treasury.
Yeah, I'm going to try to look it up on the association docs and see, because I remember seeing, if I wasn't mistaken, it's like 200 million TEL that we had for year one, and then it goes down year two, year three to like 150 or something like that. But I think we need to understand from that perspective of just how additional issuance happens, whether it's coming from the Treasury, whether it's coming from our TELx council budget, and then kind of go from there. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts or comments on that, but in the meantime, I'll go try to look at the docs and see if I can find anything.
Yeah, I guess I would say it would have to come from the Treasury Council to grant us more rewards than they actually do. But I think I'm not on the Treasury Council, obviously, but I think that we're supposed to have TEL based on what's left in the overall treasury and distribute 10% of this each year. And so when the telecom network is launched, then we can regenerate some of this TEL, and then we can decide if we can increase the rewards for all the councils, all the different treasuries in the ecosystem. So I find it a bit odd right at the beginning to ask for more funds when we're trying to assess the sustainability of the whole ecosystem. And I just say let's do with what we have now and reconsider when the network is launched and when there's some activity and the TEL is flowing back.
Yeah, I'll just jump in here. I know you ran those polls, Tim. How many actually responded to having additional pools?
Thanks. So in total across the various places I put them, there were about 60 or 70 votes.
Okay.
And they're coming from existing members, if you like, who already have an interest in the polls. So yeah, not a huge amount, but if you're going to get 60 people saying we'd like additional polls, then the next question to them would be, okay, how much would you be considering putting into it? What additional liquidity do you think we're going to get coming from you guys? All these questions can come later on. But I think, as Andrew said, what the main thing that's going to make up our minds as to whether to pursue this or not is to find out from the Treasury if additional incentives would be available. But yeah, there will be a lot more questions to be asked and work to be done, but let's not waste time doing that if the answer is going to be a straight no, and then we'll know whether to change direction or not pursue it at all.
I got some feedback on the issuance. We currently are receiving max incentives as the program is designed to the current pools.
I just saw that on it's 200 million TEL from the Treasury in year one and 16.66 million TEL per month, which is the total. So I don't know if we can use additional funds from the Treasury to support additional pools. Then again, the question that I had earlier, sorry to cut you off, Mike, but the question I had earlier was just, okay, how do we reallocate, issuance if we have more than the current 6 pools?
Correct. Yeah, and so I think that's something for consideration for liquidity. I think, from my perspective, the TELx Council and TELx in general, decisions ought to be made to provide the best price discovery price impact, tradability for users across the ecosystem, not just app users, but people who trade in general. And so adding incentives or adding a TELlink pool and a TELSOL pool would not necessarily be aligned with that because a lot of the trades are done through aggregation, and the biggest pools that are aggregated are the ones that have the most volume. And if you look at Polygon, what those tokens provide. Now, Link has quite a bit. Solana has quite a bit less on Polygon. And so there's all the things you have to sort of consider as far as like, what is the goal? And if I think about what my goal is to create larger volume trades at the least amount of price impact as possible. So ultimately boosting tradable liquidity across blockchains and in app, Telcoin network, Polygon going forward, and multi-chain, etc. So I'm not in favor of adding TELlink or TELSOL. We've had those pools already. They did not prove to provide additional liquidity for the majority of trades that were happening across the platform. But not to say that we shouldn't look at adding pools, but I don't think it should be in favor of dilution of rewards. But if we were going to add one of those pools, I'd be in favor of adding TELlink rather than like TELDFX, for example, like deprecating one and to add one that has a more active user base. I'd be in favor of that, but not to just add to the additional pools and dilute issuance.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Mike. I think that's one of the answers that is going to make us decide where to go with this, because, as you say, if we're going to dilute the existing incentives, it's going to make the existing pool less attractive. So, that's a consideration, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I hear what you're saying. I think I'm in that camp as well. And I do agree with Will. I think the timing's actually wrong for adding new pools at the moment, just for the sake of adding new pools. We've already talked about adding TELSOL, and that was more or less discounted because of the reputation of the Sol platform, as well as a number of other things. The thing that nobody's mentioned yet is the strategic advantage of adding a pool. And I know we talked about creating a new pool if it provided a strategic advantage into opening up another protocol, such as Base, for instance. And I think we needed to let the dust settle on that one a little bit as well. So I think I'm not in favour of not adding new pools, but I think the timing's wrong. And I think there has to be, in my camp, a strategic advantage as well, especially if we're going to be diluting the existing TEL rewards. So I think I'm for maintaining the status quo at the moment until we get the new network up and running, and then we can see how the whole liquidity provision is actually functioning.
Yeah, Ty, I agree with you. If the only option is for adding a new pool to dilute the existing incentives, then that's not really where I was coming from. That's not going to be something that I would like to do. Not at this stage, certainly. But can I just ask Andrew, in the information there where it states about the levels of incentives at the moment, and you're saying there's a step down. At the moment, when does year one start? That's the launch of the Telcon network. Yeah.
It doesn't say timing unless somebody else knows. It just says year one. We have the TELx Council safe has 150 million, and the distribution safe is an airdrop that we're getting for year 1 of 50, which gets us to that total 200. Year 2 is 184.5, and year 3 is 166.05. But to Will's point earlier too, the Treasury will be able to reallocate some of the other TEL that gets burnt and reminted as well. But it doesn't say a starting point or an end point, but it might line up with kind of when TGIP1 went through.
I was going to say, I think it's the formation of the association and the whole council setup. I think that's year 1. I think that was the start of year 1. That's my understanding anyway, that budget was provisioned for the start of the association.
I believe that's correct.
Well, if that's the case, TGIP1 was successfully put forward as of December 28th, 2023. So technically, if that's the case, then we're already into year 2. But the issuance hasn't changed, at least from what I can see.
That's worth a follow-up on that.
Association, but yeah.
Okay, that's interesting to know when the changes are going to happen. Obviously, people would like to know that. So if we could perhaps get that published somewhere.
Yeah, I can reach out to Parker and get some clarity on that if you guys want.
That'd be great. Yeah. So it was stepped down from year 1, year 2 to year 3, and it would stay the same after year 3. Is that what we're talking about?
It doesn't really state anything after year 3. Again, it's been a while since I've read the entirety of these documents, so I'm just trying to go through it quickly now while chatting with you guys. But I'm not seeing anything in terms of longevity right now. But
okay.
Yeah, we'll have to
don't worry for now. But it's certainly a question that I think we should address and have it not plastered everywhere, but if someone could post it somewhere within Discord or the forum or somewhere, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll try to take a look. If not, I'll reach out to Parker and see if we can connect on it, and I'll try to get you guys some updates for next week or for next meeting.
Andrew, thank you very much. Okay,
yeah.
Right. Okay, working on the basis that there's no such thing as a bad idea. Any more ideas?
Well, I was going to reach out and maybe see if Mike wanted to, elaborate, because I know, this is probably almost 6-8 weeks ago that you talked about the V3 pools, which made me do a little deep dive into what those were for Uniswap and just the concentrated liquidity. And as we're talking about, potentially adding or deprecating pools, and if we want to keep it at 6 pools for now, just to keep the issuance level the same, that's fine with me. But, do we try to incentivize more liquidity on Ethereum? To Ty's point, do we try to incentivize liquidity of a TEL USDC pool on Base? Or are there any other, chains that we want to try to push and incentivize through TELx to try to get a little bit more liquidity, to try to deepen, those channels. And
I do have some more. I have some more thoughts on that. I've been following the TEL Ethereum pool, Uniswap V3 pool on mainnet, which I'm sure you've been following along as well. And obviously, that pool does not need incentivization. Its 30-day average APY is 177%. And base APY is 115% annually. So that one does not require any incentives to keep going. And there is, you could potentially try to boost incentives for a month to try to get liquidity higher. There's only $500,000 in liquidity in that pool, and it trades them. Trades probably the equivalent volume of the entirety of Polygon on some days. So it's making that price discovery on mainnet could be more appealing to exchanges, for example, that are trying to seek liquidity because they're probably not going out to Polygon. And so there's maybe some benefit there, but I don't know if that's real or perceived. But I do believe that having offering up TEL as a tradable asset on Base could be very useful. And just a TEL Ethereum pool on Base, I would love to see that. I think it could be done potentially even without incentives. Maybe just maybe I'll even just screw around with moving some liquidity over to Base and mapping the TEL token to Base and setting up a pool over there and seeing what happens before proposing incentivization for it. But that would be another way to access a wider user base of users. Polygon is very good, but it does limit us to that ecosystem for the most part. Ethereum and Polygon is where we play, and most of the liquidity is now happening on Base and Arbitrum. So we should, as a council, discuss whether we want to try to increase our exposure to the masses by mapping our token to their networks.
Yeah, no, I love those ideas. And it'd be nice if Grant was here too, because I wanted to ask him more on how things are going with Axelar and kind of that implementation too, because I got to assume some functionality to be able to do like these cross-chain swaps. Maybe with that functionality, it might be easier for us to kind of figure out where we need to host, that liquidity if we're able to do those kind of swaps. And maybe Ethereum is that place just because of the concentrated liquidity and, the lower slippage, the higher volume, that kind of thing. It'd be nice just to understand, like, from that perspective, how that, is going to impact TELx and how we can, use that to our advantage. But I don't know enough about that side of things to speak to it intelligently just yet, but.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I don't think we don't at all cannibalize volume on Polygon by opening up a pool on Base, for example. I think it's a value add. And from an issuance perspective, if we decide to incentivize those pools on other networks, it does perhaps affect stakers to some extent, but I think that's a minimal impact. And I think that having that liquidity on other networks does increase our appeal to the masses, which will happen, anyway. As TEL marches on this year, the company marches on towards regulatory approval of the DADI and all these other things. I think the laws of attraction will shift in our favor, and will draw liquidity from wherever people can find it. But it'd be nice to have a multi-ecosystem provision.
Yeah, I would agree. It just provides a lot more opportunity for other people to get involved, especially with the whole cross-chain thing. If that makes things a lot easier and more accessible to the not so crypto-savvy people, then that's a benefit to us as well. But okay, so just to summarize, Tim, I think we'll kind of park the proposal for now until we have a little bit better understanding as to what's in store for the next little bit. Was there any other comments on that?
Yeah, well, about the multi-chain swaps, I wanted to ask Mike if you had any update to give us about the Axelar integration.
I don't. I would need to talk to Grant about that. I know that he has mentioned that in the past, and I have not followed up on that. But I will do that come January, now that we're through the holiday season and everybody's back full steam.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, it looks like the next platform in Treasury Council is on next week, the 16th. So I would assume, as usual, Grant will provide us with an update on the Telcoin network and anything that's pertinent to what's going on there.
Hey, can I just jump in real quickly? I want to follow up. I guess I second the points that have been made around getting onto Base. From a liquidity standpoint, from a visibility standpoint, but I think secondarily it ties in potentially with some of the exchange aspirations that we have, and I think that'd be a great, bolt on to those conversations as we apply,
Absolutely.
or if you're trying to get listed, right? That says, hey, we're already building on your network. We've already got these things in play. Look at the liquidity. Look at what we're driving into your ecosystem already. I think it's a powerful follow-up to those conversations. So that would be, if I think if we want to pursue anything, especially Mike, to your point around maybe some added visibility that Telcoin is going to have here in the coming months and years, right? Domestically, speaking for the U.S., Coinbase is the place people go. Oh, look, there's already ways to participate in that ecosystem on Base. So that's where my head's at with this proposal.
I agree with that 100%. I think that's kind of, I don't know for a fact, but I believe that's the way the world works. So having that,
my observation.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm totally aligned with that too. That'll only help. Sorry, go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I would almost just want to say that, Tim, if you want to modify that proposal to just do a TEL USDC on Base or something on Base, I think that's something that I would get behind and support very quickly.
Yeah, I would too. David, I would say I am a crypto maxi, so I would be more in favor of Telcoin Ethereum on Base personally. But I would be in support of any pairing of Tel with a major token on Base as a starting point.
I'm only saying, I would only say USDC only from a beginner's perspective. For new people coming into the world, that's their base operating position. But I don't disagree, Mike.
True. Yeah, I agree with both of those. I just have my own internal biases.
Yep.
So
I would also.
It's
also worth noting. There's two things actually, real quickly. I just want to mention because I know we're coming up on time. But two things. One is there's been some tweets. I think I might have retweeted one or two of them. But the trading on decentralized exchanges, the volume is starting to overtake a lot of these centralized exchanges. So I think it's definitely the right direction for us to go, and then the centralizers will jump on the bandwagon after the fact. But then also, I want to say that there was a tweet, actually, I think from Balancer yesterday, a couple of days ago, that they're building on Base a V3 that's looking to, I think, from my interpretation, neutralize some of these. What's the word here? Not the arbitrage bots, the MEV bots, right? To kind of redistribute some of those profits that those bots take back to the liquidity providers. So I have to dig more into it, but I think there's some interesting development work that's going on there that would benefit future liquidity pools if we decide to go that direction.
Great, guys. Thank you so much for your feedback on that. And
Absolutely.
Yeah. If we want a minute, that we'll follow up on the proposed Base options. We can revisit that in a couple of months' time. What sort of timescales you want on having another look at that?
Yeah.
My vote would be sooner rather than later.
To follow up on the issuance question, we are officially in year 2. As we were discussing earlier, I've just been texting with Parker on the side, and TELx will maintain. There's a proposal, I guess, right now, which I'm not following sadly, but I should be, for year 2 issuance in the Treasury Council right now. It'll be put forward in a couple of weeks. That will basically maintain status quo allocation for TELx for year 2, because there was some TEL that was not issued in year 1. For example, for other issuance platforms. So that is that proposal is being put forward. So I think we can plan to proceed with year 2 issuances unchanged from year 1.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great.
So just to the one question I had, because we kind of talked about keeping 6 pools. If that's the case, and we want to try to push forward sooner rather than later with either 1 or 2 base options, that means we got to look at potentially deprecating 1 to 2 pools, right?
I believe, I think so.
Okay. So then from that perspective, how do we do that based off of, our each individual thought? Do we do that based off of metrics? If it's metric based, what metrics are we using? Like I just want to try to build an understanding of how we kind of look at these pools in terms of success or failure. And then just to kind of keep a framework that we can use on an ongoing basis to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think we should look at volumes and what they do. We can look at the routing and see how many trades go through certain pools. The one that I think is hard to get good data on is the one with DFX, because it's a 3-token pool, and so orders that are being aggregated and routed from TEL to USDC, a small percentage of that is going through that pool. But when you look at the daily volume for DFX, it doesn't even equal the total volume that goes through that pool. So it's, that's one I think we should. I know we have some very there were some DFX fans in the crowd, but I think that one would be the first one we would try to deprecate, just because it doesn't really make much sense.
Well,
DFX is also opening a pool on base too. DFX is also moving, or not moving, but opening up a pool or exploring base options right now as well.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
Update from Kevin, I think, the other day, but I know they're moving that direction as well.
Yeah, it's that DFX pool on TELx that, that one of the 6 that's out of kilter with the other 5, isn't it? It's just that it doesn't compare with the other 5. It's a bit of a quirk.
Well, if we're looking, again, it depends on what metrics we're looking at. If we're looking at volume, the DFX and the balancer pool are both pretty similar for the most part. They're both kind of on the bottom end. The BTC USDC pools are typically the top 2, and then you'll have the wrap Polygon and the other pool that is typically in the middle, and then you have DFX and balancer that are typically the bottom 2, which are pretty similar. So if we need to deprecate 2, those would be the 2 that I would look at just from a volume metric. But again, I know it's not ideal, just because there are people that are involved in those pools now that may need to redistribute liquidity. But Tim, what I would ask is take a look at ties in my proposal, and I know you kind of put yours together, but if you could try to put it in the same kind of framework, like the template that the team provided us, and then just put in some details along those lines. And if the recommendation is to start with one and we want to deprecate the DFX pool for now, then maybe put that as part of your proposal, and then we can have a bigger discussion about that and get some more community feedback from everybody else as well.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Happy to revisit that. I think in the future, I'm not really minded to jump on that straight away. I think that the way we're going with this, it's probably best, I think, to wait well into this year to see what's going to happen before we decide about deprecating any pools to replace them with new ones. So yeah, I would say go back to the first answer of park it for now.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take up that one too. That's one of I've been wanting to do that, and then just gotten busy with the fundraise and with holidays and everything else. But I'll put something together and have Parker proofread it before I present it to you guys. And so we'll see where it goes. But I'd like to get something done within just at least get the wheels greased on that here in the next month. So that's the plan.
Okay. Sounds good with me.
I'd be very supportive of extension into the base protocol as well. And I think there's strategic advantages to be had from that one. So, yeah.
Right. Yep.
Okay. Any other comments around that?
Yeah, I'm all for it. Well, yes, let's expand to new networks, and we'll see from there. But I don't think we need 2 pools on basis. Maybe just one will be enough, so we only deprecate one on Polygon, and we see where where we want to go from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. I think we just take it one at a time, and we'll see. We can then have data that supports our decision after a 3-month period. You can look at, we deprecated this pool that was producing $30,000 average volume burst and put it into this pool, which is now has $1 million in volume. And wow, look how smart we are. And so before we go ahead and make any more additional changes, so I like that.
Yeah, make the decisions a little bit more database than our emotional.
Emotional, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's important as a unit here, that we are very emotional about TEL, and for one, and so we have to maintain a lens that allows us to see things that we don't always want to see. So I think that's good.
Agreed. Okay.
Yeah, cool.
All good, Tim? Yeah, all good. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just going to
all
say,
good.
I know we don't have too many people here, just looking at questions and whatnot. We can open it up to the community if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns. While we wait to see if anybody wants to jump up. Is everybody good with the next couple meeting times in dates? January 22nd at 2, February 5th, and February 19th. Again, at basically the same time as we've always been doing it. Everybody still okay with that time?
I am.
Yeah, perfect for me.
Okay.
Yeah, 1 hour earlier would be ideal for me,
but I'll let you know.
Yeah, 1 hour earlier would be easier for me, but I'll be okay with the same timing if it's best for everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, okay with me.
Good. Okay. Anybody from the community want to jump up? Any other questions or any final thoughts from anybody here on stage? If not, then we can close this one off. But I think it was a good call to come back from the holidays. Lot discussed. Yeah, I think it was a good one. A little bit longer than I think we're normally used to, but that's okay. We had a decent amount of stuff to discuss anyway.